Hey everybody, Dave here. I'm here to review the 2025 film Ed Kemper. This is a film from Epic Pictures horror label Dread, and it's going to be released in select theaters on April 4th and available for rent or purchase or video on demand on April 8th. It is directed by Chad Ferrin, who's previously done Pig Killer and H.P. Lovecraft's The Old Ones, and he also co-wrote it along with Steven Johnson, who worked on Ted Bundy and The Hillside Strangler. The film stars Lou Temple, whom some of you may know from Walking Dead, um, Brink Stevens from House on Haunted Hill, Brandon Kirk from Scalper, and a number of other people are in that cast as well. But yeah, let's get into the film. So the thing that I thought was interesting is it focuses on a few key factors of Ed Kemper's life. So we got childhood, and we got his relationship with his mom, and then the murders. So the thing that I was struck by right away is, as someone who's recently done a deep dive on Ed Kemper, I was instantly noticing that the people that created this film had done their research. Like this, there was so many things in here that were exactly the way that they were explained in my research, or um just like it just felt very like there was a lot of accuracy in the depiction here. Obviously there's things that are up for interpretation, so like interactions or even some dynamics I think were kind of like what they felt might have happened. But for the most part, like the murders themselves or even some key childhood events, it's exactly how I've learned them. There was actually even a few things that I saw in here that I'm like, oh, I don't remember hearing about that. So I looked them up after the film, and sure enough, yes, they were exactly correct. So I want to give a big kudos to the filmmakers and the writers of this film for making sure to get this right. The reason why I say that is, like, if you're going to do a film like this, if you're going to make a film about a serial killer, I don't really see the point in doing it if you're not going to get those things right. Like, we're not talking about a fictional character here. We're not making some big fictional story. We're supposed to be telling the story of true events and how they actually happened. And when it comes to Ed Kemper, you don't really need to fabricate the truth, because he is one of the darkest and most heinous serial killers that has existed. And in many ways, he did it before many of the other ones, and he probably did it worse in some ways. Ed Kemper is a really dark, twisted story. So, if you're watching this, be prepared. There's nothing light-hearted about Ed Kemper. So you are going to embark on a very dark, gory journey. Um, there's a large part of this film that explores the dynamic with his mom, and it almost has like this sympathetic or empathetic view of like that dynamic, because there's a part of him that just so strongly desires for his mom to show him some sort of love. And she is just so cold, emasculating and harsh on him. She views him in such a dark way that, like, he doesn't get it, but he's always just hoping for it, and like any glimpse of it, like he just holds on to stronger and stronger. And he just always wants it, but he hates her at the same time because of the way she treats him. His dad leaves at a very early age, and he did have a good connection with his dad, but because he's gone, there's no one there to protect him, and there's no one else for him to get love from. So in many ways, he's stuck with her. um so yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic. And I also just want to say, like, in the same way, I don't think that it's necessarily done to make us feel sorry for Ed Kemper or to necessarily justify any kind of actions he committed. I think it's more just to show us how he developed into the character he developed in. How did he become such a monster? Well, these are the kind of the steps that got him there. And this is also the way his mind started to work that allowed him to be able to engage in some of those behaviors he engaged in. And also another big piece of this, which I don't know, this was something I feel like might have been more interpretation by the writers of the story, but there was also this tinge of like sexuality and some of the things that were happening with mom and him. For example, there's a scene where she comes home drunk at night, and she's, screaming at him as he's trying to sleep, and kind of talking about her sex life, and just things a kid, or a young adult, or whoever, however old he was at the time, wouldn't want to hear their mom talking about. But also, he has no other relationships. He has no connection with females or, any intimate relationships. So you start to mix that into his thoughts about hate and love and then sexuality, and it really starts to kind of make sense as to the murders that feel so senseless. A lot of them are based, well, they're all geared towards women. There's definitely some sexuality within the murders as well. He plays with the body parts. He does a lot of gross things with them. Um, and he also treats them as if they're not human. So, kind of all those feelings he has towards his mom, he exacts on his victims. Uh, Very interesting, gross, fascinating though story here. I don't think the film justifies the murders in any way. Like I said, I think it just kind of shows the dynamics and how he was created. So for people who are worried about like, is this just glorifying another serial killer or someone who's done things? I don't think this is meant to glorify. I think it's a story that's being told for people who are fascinated by true crime, by serial killers, by just dark subjects. You could always choose not to watch this if you are someone who isn't into those things or fears about like glorification of characters like this. But for people like me, that's just fascinated with the way the human mind works and what causes people to do horrible things. I think this kind of helps provide some of that um, reasoning, I guess you would say. There's some interesting thing that happens to with the murder scenes as we get to those a little later. There's this the after effect, like what he does after the murder's done, is seen in this. It's really like grotesque and bizarre, but it's seen in almost this way that like it's presented to us as if we're not even supposed to like think it's that not normal, right? It's like almost the tone of it is like very casual or even sometimes a little comical, which I hate to say because of the nature of what's happening. But it's almost as if we're seeing it through his eyes. Like he doesn't see it as anything terrible, and he's kind of seeing it as like playful and things like that. So I think it's interesting. It's almost like we're at one point we're in his mind and we're seeing it through his eyes, and kind of in this like really just non-judgmental way. We're viewing this really horrible thing. Um, I think that's also kind of helpful to get us to understand like this is how far he has gone. He is at the point where he does not value human life. He does not care about these people. And in many ways, they are just there for his own pleasure. So really interesting, sick, twisted, dark stuff. Um, I enjoyed this film quite a bit. I will say that it was very entertaining for someone who's into serial killers, psychology, um, all this kind of stuff. Like for me, this kind of hit the mark. As soon as I found out about this film, I was super excited and wanted to be able to check it out. So I'm glad I was able to. Um, Back in the early 2000s, there was this all these direct to video films like biopics about serial killers. There was a Dahmer, Gacy, BTK. I think Jeremy Renner was Dahmer in that one, and there was I'm trying to remember who was Gacy, but like yeah, they were all these direct to video films, and they were kind of like lower budget, but like did the trick if you want to watch a film about any of these guys. This totally had that feel to me. Um, there was aspects about it that would obviously prevent it from being something that I think would make a theater run for a long period of time. Definitely felt a little lower budget at times. The special effects were a little wonky in a couple of scenes, but in general, had some great gore and practical effects. It felt like, well, maybe they were maybe not practical effects. There was a lot of CGI, but anyways, it wasn't bad. Like it only threw there was like two scenes I would say it threw me off a little bit. For the most part, pretty well done. Um, it had the stuff I was looking for. I was looking for that feel that I had when I used to watch those films back in the early 2000s. Like I said, I used to really enjoy watching those um, for the reasons of I just wanted to learn more about these individuals and I wanted to have it presented to me in a way that felt like I was seeing a little bit into their mind and it wasn't shying away from showing me the stuff that I probably wanted to see a little bit, I guess you would say. The actors, I feel like they all did a really good job. Brandon Kirk, especially as Kemper. At times, though, his performance felt a little comedic and he almost reminded me of Ted Lasso. But Ed Kemper's kind of a weird looking dude. So that probably had more to do with that than anything. Overall, will say I definitely enjoyed his performance. Um, there was one aspect of this film. I just will give this feedback about it just because this is an honest review. There was one aspect that I didn't care for so much, which sort of strayed from the actual story and kind of gave us more of like a visual explanation to like his turning evil. This comes early on and then it makes a reappearance later in the film. If you're watching it, you'll know what I'm referring to when you see it, I believe. To me, this element felt a little unnecessary, but at the same time, it wasn't a large enough part of the film to ruin my experience. So, um, yeah, that was like the only thing I can kind of say, like, yeah, I wish that part probably wasn't in there. But the rest of it, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed taking this dive in on Kemper and seeing it kind of depicted visually. That was enjoyable for me. If you're into serial killers, if you're into true crime, this is definitely something I'd recommend to you. If I feel like with the budget in hand, this film was really well done, and I really look forward to seeing more of these killer biopics that they're apparently releasing in the future. I think I read maybe a Richard Ramirez. That would be amazing. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And also, hopefully everyone is able to check out this film. Just again, like I said, April 8th, I believe. No, April 4th, limited theater run, April 8th, available for rent or purchase on video on demand. So, Ed Kemper, check it out. Let us know your thoughts. See you later.